Greetings, family. A grand rising, a great rising, a joyous rising. Hello, happy Monday, everybody. It's so good to be here. Welcome. Join us, family. Let us know where you're hailing from. This is a Monday. It is April the 7th, 2025, and the time is 6:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check in and let us know where you're hailing from, family. It's good to be back after spending the weekend with my grandbaby. So, we're going to give some news today and then we're going to jump right off. I don't want to bore you with my details, but I was excited to see some of the things that came out at the end of last week and during the weekend. So, keep checking in and let us know where you're hailing from. I see Sister Tina and Rich Pritch in the house. Bert is here, says hello from Louisville, Kentucky. Bert, wait till I tell you what happened in regards to Kentucky. Some news came out about what some people in Kentucky did, and I'm so excited to hear that. Thank you so much, Brother Dennis Perkins, for the Cash App blessing. You're so amazing. I appreciate you. People are sending in Cash Apps already. Thank you so much. Hello, Gina. Welcome. It's good to see you. Gino, excuse me, Vallejo. Are you from Vallejo or your name is Vallejo? I lived in Vallejo in California. It's a beautiful area in Northern California. So welcome, Gino. Also, from Monterey Valley, California. Welcome. I see Melissa from Texas. And who else? Sister Brenda says hello from Lake City, Florida. Welcome, Sister Brenda. It's good to see you as well. Shout out to King David Noble. Greetings, he says, to all the beautiful souls. Sunshine Lady is in the house from Alabama. Welcome. It's good to see you. Malik Bay is here. He says, Grand Rising. It's good to see you always. Welcome back. And Untouchable is here. He says, thank you, or she says, thank you. Malik is here again. Vicky is from Minnesota. Welcome from Minnesota. We're so glad to see you. Robert is back in the house. Untouchable is from my hometown where I was born and raised, Cleveland, Ohio. So welcome, Untouchable. Also, K Sarah says, good day from Pennsylvania. LT is in the house. Keep checking in, family. I see we have 137 people in the chat. Keep checking in. I lost connection. Sorry about that, family. Who else? McDonald's in the house. Big Pat says, hello, Queen, from McDonald, Georgia. Eric is here from Delaware. Sister Monica's in the house from Sydney. Wow, is that Australia? Welcome. Carl is here. He says, Grand Rising. Live in the Now. Is Deborah sending love from Las Vegas, Nevada? Ronell Bay is in the house. Thank you, family. Keep checking in. Ronell says, peace and love from Connecticut. Sister Belinda is here. She says, greetings, Dr. Pruitt from Cleveland, Ohio. It's great to see you, my queen sister. It's good to see you as well. And as my former husband used to say, it's good to be seen and not viewed. King David and King James are in the house. King James says, greetings, checking in from Charlotte, North Carolina, as they call it, Kakalaki. Who else is in the house? Matayo is from the UK. Welcome. Margarita says, hello, peace and love from Massachusetts. Paulina is from New Jersey. She says, I love your hair, by the way. Thank you so much. Janine says, I just love you. Thank you so much, Sister Janine. I love you with all my soul. I love you to life. Barb is from Boston. Hello. Eve of Knowledge is checking in from Chicago. Chicago in the house. H is here from Texas. Antonio says he's from Chattanooga, Tennessee. We love you, Empress. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. I am honored to be here, and I'm so grateful to be a reflection of you and all of the Soul family. MM is in the house. Greetings, MM. Vicky is here from McDonald, Georgia. Senator Republic, Georgia, Nancy Singletary. Hello, Senator Republic from Georgia. Sister Nancy Singletary, welcome. We're so grateful that you graced us with your presence today. Sister Lisa is in the house from Orlando, Rich Rising family. Maureen is from Connecticut. Thank you for joining us. Untouchable is so happy to see everybody checking in again. Carl says hello. Carl grew up in Crescent, Florida, and I am hailing from Jacksonville, Florida right now. So welcome, Carl Cohen. Miss Janine says, hey, y'all, from the DFW, in Texas, checking in. Mattia wants to know, what does it mean when he consistently sees the number 33? You guys let us know what that means in the chat. Nadine Bay is in the house. She says, greetings, Dr. Pruitt and everyone. Blessings are to come. Que Sera wants to know what happened. We'll tell you. Yes, you're here, Don. It's always good to see you, Don J. Welcome. Eva Knowledge can't wait to hear what's going on. Jerron is from Birmingham, Alabama. Is it over? God, I hope so. Republic Senator in the house. Hello again, Republic Senator from Georgia, Nancy Singleton. Raphael is here. Jerron says, we love you, Kia. I love you too, darling. Viola Bay says, hello from Florida. Florida is in the house. Lori says, welcome, everybody. Grand Rising. Brother Thomas, it's always good to see you from Ocala, Florida. I've been to your neck of the woods. It's a very beautiful area. We had a lot of Republican conventions there in Ocala, so I appreciate that area, and I love it. It's beautiful. Mary Helen is in the house from Wisconsin. H2O Mellow is from California. Welcome. St. Simmons Island in the house, Singleton. Nancy Singletary says, lots of love to you, Sister Sophie. Don J is happy to be here. He calls me his Kia pet. Anthony says, good day, my sister and family. Good day, King Anthony Hood. It's always good to hear from you. You've been a supporter of the show for many years. Thank you. Sunshine Gold is in the house. Hey, Mama Kia from Las Vegas, Nevada. My son is calling me. I have to tell him to call me back. Call me back, son. I'm on a live. Love you too. Who else? Oh, Thomas is from Ocala again. Thank you for keeping us so well informed. H2O Mellow says you're welcome. I see 212 people in the chat. Keep checking in. Pauline says, I heard gold went down significantly. It did. We're going to talk about that. Raised vibrations for Rolex. Yes. Since I've been subscribed. Thank you. And for those who encourage you, he says, or Rose says, excuse me. You're welcome. It's always my great pleasure. You know, without you all, I wouldn't be relevant. Michael is here in the house. Also, Adorius is here. Peace, Mama Kia from LA. Is that LA or Louisiana? Living in Jamaica. Wow. All right. Keep checking in. B Light is in the house. Says the deep state is officially dismantled now and they're rebuilding, and it's rebuilding time. Hailing from DC. Peace, family. We have another chief in the house. Chief Fayawata is often here. Hello, Chief Fayawata. It's always good to see you. Greetings from Turtle Island Territory. She says, St. Vincent. Thank you, Chief Fayawata. One day you're going to have to come on and give us some encouraging words, because it's always good to hear from a chief and a chiefess. Gary is in the house. Welcome. What a wonderful day. What a wonderful time to be alive. Sunshine Gold is from Las Vegas. Sandy Hill says, hi, Kia, sending lots of love. That's great. Sending love back to you. Adrian is in the house, sending peace and kindness. C. Jones says, hello from Houston, Texas. Chief Fayawata says, happy New Year, everybody. It was his chief. I don't know if you're a female or male chief. Maybe a male, because Fayawata, I'm not sure, but it was Chief Fayawata's solar return yesterday. Happy birthday. Raymond is in the house. Hello to a very beautiful woman. Happy to be here. Oh, thank you so much. Nice to see you. Oh, what a blessing. Thank you so much. Adrian says, New York City is in the building. I'm ready to go to the bank, honey. All right. Ian is in the house from Australia, and Chief Fayawata, I thought so, is a female in the house. Thank you for 227 people being in the chat. Let's get on with the news, family. Again, this is Moon Day, a high manifestation day. It's also the 7th day of the 4th month. 7 is the number of completion. So welcome to the 7th day of April. It's also the new year and a new season. So welcome to the new year, family. It is springtime, time for all the flowers and trees to blossom, time for the animals to come out of hibernation. It is also time for Easter for all of the Christians that celebrate Easter. And for those who don't celebrate Easter, but maybe you come from a pagan background, or you come from a spiritual background, but not necessarily religious, you may celebrate Estre, who is the goddess of fertility. That is in alignment with all the stars and the moons and the planets, how they line up one by one and welcome in the new year. This is why the Romans actually put the resurrection of Christ, the celebration of it, around this time, because some of the so-called pagans were actually worshiping the goddess fertility Estre or Ishtar or Isis around this season, because the goddess of fertility also reminds us of spring, new life, new beginnings. So when the Romans took over power, what they did is they said, well, you have the Jews that celebrate the resurrection of the Christ during Passover season, where the death angel passed over the Jews in the Old Testament. And then in the New Testament, it was the death, burial, resurrection of the Christ during the same time of Passover, the death angel passing over the children of Israel, or the so-called the Hebrew Jewish people. And I know that because I've kept Passover all my life since I was a child, being from the Hebraic or Judaic bloodline. So you have the Jews that celebrated Passover. You have the so-called pagans, or those that weren't necessarily religious, who honored and venerated the goddess of fertility, Estre and Ishtar, at the same time. And then you have the Christians who venerated or honored also the death, burial, resurrection of the Christ. So we are burying the old with the coldness and the winter time. We're getting rid of all of that, and we're ushering in spring. We're resurrecting the spring season. We're resurrecting the so-called goddess of fertility. That's why during Easter time they have bunnies and eggs. And I'm not the one that will say bad things about people who celebrate Easter, or any bad things about people who venerate the goddess of fertility, Ishtar, because all of the holidays or holy days have to deal with what's going on in the heavens. As above, so below. So we're celebrating springtime, a new season, resurrection, prosperity, and abundance, and a joy, new life, and new beginnings, family. So get excited as we talk about what's occurring during this new season. One of the things that President Trump just said a couple of days ago was that every single country has conceded to him. Every single country, he said, called to negotiate tariffs. Tariffs are taxes, duties, or it's also called tariffs, that countries put on imported goods into their country. So when American goods would go into these various countries, the countries would put a tax on those imported goods, and that's how countries make money. Here in America, we used to do the same thing. We would put taxes, tariffs, or duties on any imported goods coming in, for example, from China, Cambodia, Africa, anywhere that these goods would come into our nation, we would put a tax on them or duty on them. And that's how we made money. Well, unfortunately, many presidents that came into power over the last few decades stopped taxing these countries for doing business with us. We stopped taxing their imported goods. Either in part, we removed lots of the tariffs or taxes, or we removed all of them. And instead of taxing these countries, the leaders taxed the people, and they implemented the IRS, or the Internal Revenue Services, to do so. So by taxing us, these people who call themselves presidents or leaders were actually making money for themselves. Well, President Trump has come along and said, I am going to end the Internal Revenue Services, or the IRS, and create the External Revenue Service, the ERS. And I'm going to stop taxing the people and start taxing other countries. And that, my darlings, is going to make us very wealthy. So when President Trump made the announcement on the campaign trail, and when he made that announcement when he first came into office this second term, that he would start taxing these countries for doing business with them and doing business with us, a lot of economists said that's going to hurt our economy. Our economy is going to take a downturn. If he says he's going to tax these nations, then these nations will stop importing their goods, or they will put higher taxes on American imported goods going into their countries. Well, President Trump is a businessman. He's a billionaire. He's the great negotiator. He actually wrote a book about negotiating, the art of negotiation. He knows what he's doing. So what he did was he gave all these countries a deadline, and that deadline was April the 2nd. He said by April the 2nd, these countries need to remove the tariffs from American imported goods, or at least come to the table and have a discussion with us, or else we will put such a high tax on them that it will hurt their country. It will hurt their pockets. It will hurt their nation. And again, economists, mainstream media said it's going to be bad for the American people. Oh my God, now it's going to raise the prices of goods here in America. But what happened, as I reported the other day, is ahead of the April 2nd deadline. What happened is these countries, one by one, called President Trump and said, we relent. We are going to renegotiate. We don't want retaliatory taxes put on us because we've been taxing you all for decades and for centuries. So they started conceding and saying, we're going to reduce our taxes. Israel, as a matter of fact, said, we're going to remove all duties and taxes or tariffs from American imported goods coming into our country. And on the heels of Israel doing that, and Vietnam and some other nations, all nations called President Donald Trump. And he said, in fact, every country has called to negotiate. And he also said, President Trump said, that's the beauty of what we do. We put ourselves in the driver's seat. He said, by doing this, we're going to make America very wealthy. And these tariffs give us power to negotiate everything, and that put Americans and our country, as a matter of fact, on a whole different level. Now, as I announced the other day, the thing about putting tariffs or taxes on these countries that import goods here in America is not only is it going to make America very wealthy, but these nations are going to have to do something about their currency in order to have a level playing field. And I showed you a video yesterday of President Trump saying regarding the devaluation of currencies, we're going to do what we can to create a level playing field. The level playing field was putting taxes and tariffs on these nations for their imported goods and for doing business with us. Now, these nations have to revalue their currencies so their currencies can be one-to-one with our currency. So you have that one thing that's happening. I'm going to show you President Trump saying that all countries have conceded to him. But also we announced that Vietnam, by removing their tariff on American imported goods, the article stated that now you have a high demand for Vietnamese currency. And what we know by applying our economic principles is when you have a high demand for something, what does that do? It reduces the supply. High demand means that the supply shrinks. What happens when you have a low supply? You have a high demand for a Vietnamese dong. People are going to, start asking for the dong. Then its supply is going to shrink. What do? When something becomes more valuable because it has fewer of them, you raise the value, you raise the prices. So that is also what's going to raise the price of the Vietnamese dong as well as other currencies. I also showed you the other day how Iraq, as of April the 1st, implemented a new transportation system, which makes Iraq the transportation hub of the Middle East. and in fact, the transportation hub of the world, because now Iraq has connected itself with over 66 countries. And the articles support my claim by saying now Iraq has become the transportation hub of the world as of April the 1st, the day before President Trump gave the deadline for these negotiations regarding tariffs. So the articles support my claim, stating that now with these things being implemented, the demand for their currencies will raise. And you have to look for my video where I talk about that about 3 or 4 days ago. But the article stated that now that Iraq has become the transportation hub of the world, that will increase the demand for the Iraqi dinar. What happens when you have an increased demand for something? The supply shrinks. So now you have a high demand for the Iraqi dinar, since Iraq has now become the transportation hub of the world, which means all goods will be transported to all these nations more quickly and more efficiently. High demand for the Iraqi dinar, which will create a low supply. Low supply for the Iraqi dinar means they have to increase the value of the Iraqi dinar. So you should expect to see a reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. Additionally, Zimbabwe, and I'll have to show you if I can find an article that says that Zimbabwe actually called and they said that they wanted to renegotiate the tariffs with President Trump. So now Zimbabwe is renegotiating and they're removing the tariffs on American imported goods. Now people are saying, oh my God, we know that the Zimbabwean Zim is about to be revalued or be reinstated back to its pre-war and pre-sanctioned values. But first, let me show you the video where President Trump actually said that nations have conceded and all nations have decided to negotiate tariffs. I'm going to show you this from my computer, but the volume is low, so I'll also show it to you from my phone. But just in case some of you can hear it from the computer, let me show this to you right here. From Watcher Guru, President Trump says every country called to negotiate tariffs.
Every country's close. That's the beauty of what we do. Put ourselves in the driver's seat.
It's too low.
We would have asked some of these countries, most of these countries, to do us a favor. They would have said no. Now they'll do anything for us. But we have tariffs. They've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
Okay, that's very low. So I'm going to show it to you from my phone. 1 minute, but I will put that link in the description section for you, and I'll also put it in the chat. So let's see if I can show it to you from my phone. 1 second.
Every country's goals. That's the beauty of every country's goals. That's the beauty of what we do.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in the driver's seat. If we would have asked some of these countries, most of these countries, to do us a favor, they would have said no. Now they'll do anything for us. But we have tariffs. They've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
Are you open to deals with these countries if they're calling you?
Well, it depends. If somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal, as long as they're giving us something that's good. For instance, with TikTok as an example, we have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate. Always have. I've used them very well in the first administration, as you saw, but now we're taking it to a whole new level because it's a worldwide situation.
So some of you saying that you can hear it. I don't know. Could you hear it from the phone or for the computer? Can you let me know? Because if you can hear it from the computer, I'll share it again. But hold on. Excuse me 1 minute, family. My video, my phone is going. Where could you hear it from? How many times should I hit the like button so you guys could hear it? So essentially what President Trump said is that every nation called to negotiate. And that's the beauty of what we do. We put ourselves in the driver's seat. He said that China regarding TikTok will likely make a deal, but they'll ask us, what are we going to do about the tariffs? And he says tariffs gives us great powers to negotiate. And now we're taking it to a whole nother level. I'll also show you an article. Hello, family. You could hear from the phone. Oh, you could hear from both. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'll let you hear it from the computer one more time. For those of you that are just checking in, President Trump saying every country has called to negotiate tariffs.
Every country's called us. That's the beauty of what we do. We put ourselves in the driver's seat. If we would have asked some of these countries, almost most of these countries, to do us a favor, they would have said no. Now they'll do anything for us. But we have tariffs, they've been set.
He said we would have asked countries to do stuff for us before, they would have said no. But now that we put tariffs on them and we threatened to tax them for doing business with us, now they're willing to come to the table.
And it's going to make our country very rich.
And it's going to make our country very rich.
Are you open to deals with these countries if they're calling you?
Well, it depends. If somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal, as long as they're giving us something that's good. For instance, with TikTok as an example, we have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate. Always have. I've used them very well in the first administration, as you saw, but now we're taking it to a whole new level because it's a worldwide situation.
He said we're taking things to a whole new level because it's a worldwide situation. Do you remember me saying that 209 countries agreed to world peace, and 209 countries agreed to, when triggered, stop trading with the United States dollar and use their own country's currencies? And then they would to trade for trade, and that they would back their country's currencies with gold. They were waiting for the trigger, and the trigger was Vladimir Putin going to expose all the criminal activity that was going on in Ukraine. And once that happened, that led to a chain of events. Biden put sanctions on Vladimir Putin. Then Putin responded by dropping the United States dollar, and he knew that by doing that, it will affect the economy worldwide, because what made the dollar the world reserve currency and what gave the dollar in the United States incorporated financial and economic hegemony, was our agreement with Saudi Arabia to protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for their oil, and then force all exporting nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia. And we said they must use the dollar to do so. And if any nation did not get oil from Saudi Arabia and they did not use the United States dollar to do so, we would just put sanctions on those nations. Or we just go over there and declare war. Then America would, or the United States Incorporated of America, would fund both sides of the war, tear up the country through war, which would then devalue their currencies. Then leaders worldwide, including presidents, corporate leaders, bankers, and people high up in the military, would buy those countries' currencies that have been devalued through war or sanctions. They will hold on to them, wait until after the war. Then America would withdraw some of their troops, but go back in as a nation and rebuild the infrastructure. Once America would go back in those nations and rebuild the infrastructure, they didn't care who won because they funded both sides. Then with the infrastructure rebuilt and companies coming back in, the GDP of those nations would go back up. The country's currencies would be reinstated back to its pre-war or pre-sanctioned value. And then those people who have bought the countries' currencies, such as Iraq, that have been devalued through war or sanctions, those people that held on to those currencies, that knew about it and bought it when they had been devalued, now they're like, oh my God, the currency had been reinstated after the war, after we rebuilt their nation. Then they would go to the bank with the new rate on those currencies and become millionaires and billionaires overnight. That's how a lot of politicians, other than insider trading, became extremely wealthy. People high up in the military, corporate leaders, bankers, all of them became wealthy. But this information was withheld from the public. Now we know what has been going on for a long time. So again, Project Sandman was a secret agreement that when triggered, they would stop trading with the United States dollar and they would use their own country's currencies for trade. What they did in anticipation of that, because they knew Vladimir Putin would be the trigger, they started repatriating their gold, their artifacts, and their other precious metals from the Vatican. And they started negotiating with each other, these nations did. For example, African nations started negotiating with China and saying, we're going to have a contract with you to mine our gold and our precious metals that are underground to help us with that, because we haven't done it in so long. We don't really necessarily know how. And since China has been mining gold for centuries, African nations like Zimbabwe made agreements with China to mine the gold. What other kind of agreements did they make? They made agreements to revalue or reinstate their country's currencies after the trigger. So again, the countries through Project Sandman, some people call it Operation Sandman, agreed to, when triggered, stop trading with the United States dollar and use their own country's currencies for trade. They knew that this would systematically destroy the central bank of the United States Incorporated. It would destroy the Federal Reserve central banking system. It would destroy the so-called United States dollar, and it will force all nations to come to the table, because nations said that they were going to revalue their currencies once they stopped trading with the dollar. Now they're forced to do so. They're forced, since they stopped trading with the dollar, to do something so that their country's currencies can be one-to-one with each other. So you had that secret agreement, Project Sandman, that forced the nations to repatriate their gold back to themselves, force the nations, or through agreement, to stop trading with the dollar and start using their own country's currencies. And you have President Trump putting tariffs on these countries that do business with us and that import their goods into America. So a lot of economists said that would be a bad thing by putting tariffs on these countries, because these countries could stop trading with the dollar. But behind the scenes, they had already done that anyway. No harm, no foul, because we want to systematically destroy the United States dollar. And what I mean by the United States dollar is the USD, the one that's attached to the central banking system, not the United States Treasury note. That would be the new dollar, the dollar that's pegged to gold and silver. The new Treasury note is good. That is in alignment with the Republic and the Constitution for our Republic, which is the law of the land. And that Constitution said that the only thing that can be used to pay off the debts in America is silver and gold. And the Constitution for our Republic also says that the dollar is defined as a fixed weight in silver. Well, in alignment with the Constitution, you have Congress Coinage Act, which was coined or passed or presented on April the 2nd, 1792. Congress's Coinage Act pegs the dollar to gold and silver, and that was the precursor to the gold standard. And this is why when President Trump announced that April 2nd will be Liberation Day, it wasn't just about it being the deadline for these countries to come to the table and negotiate with President Trump in regards to the tariffs, but it was also about the Coinage Act that was implemented on April the 2nd, 1792. So we were celebrating two things during April the 2nd, Liberation Day, liberating our country from suffering, from having to pay out all this money through these, whenever we would deal with these countries. And their companies, we would pay out all the money, and they would not negotiate with the presidents here. Well, now we're liberated, because putting tariffs on their goods now makes America very wealthy. Now America or presidents don't have to tax the people. We're going to be wealthy through taxing other nations, number one, and we're going to be wealthy through the Sovereign Wealth Fund. The Sovereign Wealth Fund is a fund that President Trump created through executive order as soon as he got into office during his second term. You can look it up. We've reported about this. The Sovereign Wealth Fund is a fund that is comprised of real estate, precious metals, rare earth minerals, foreign currencies, stocks, bonds, et cetera, and digital assets. This fund will be used for development, to develop our country, and to develop humanitarian efforts and all those things. So it's used, this sovereign wealth fund will be used for development and for investment. And when you have a sovereign wealth fund and you have tariffs that you put on these other nations, and you stop taxing the people, that makes your country very wealthy. But friends, family, ear hustlers, lurkers, and even foes, if you're listening, this is great news for America and the American people. We are going to be very wealthy right during this season. And the interesting thing about this season is that in April, around 2020, President Trump said that it would be Eastern time, around Easter time, when we would see a lot of wealth coming into our country. Now, we thought it was going to be Easter time in 2020, but just perhaps it will be Easter of 2024. Who knows? But 420 actually equals DT. A, B, C, D is the fourth letter, and T is the 20th letter. So President Trump did say this a while ago, and that again was in 2020 when he said we're going to have everything put into place on 420. If I could find that particular video for you, it was on Twitter, I'll show it to you. But he said 420, everything will be done, everything will be implemented. So while I look for that, I want to show you the article where President Trump said all nations have called him to negotiate tariffs. Crystal says Trump knows what he's doing. He's getting us paid. Absolutely. Marianne says, I wonder how Princess Elizabeth is doing. She's doing extremely well. I've spoken to her several times last week, and I anticipate seeing her very soon. So thank you for asking about our Princess Elizabeth from the Philippines. She's a very lovely lady who says that she is the trigger for Nasara and Jassara because she is in the bloodline of many sovereign funds, such as the Rodriguez Fund, several Saint Germain Trust, and other trusts. And if you want to learn more about Princess Elizabeth, you can look on my YouTube channel, Dr. Kia Pruitt, or my Rumble channel, and you will see at Dr. Kia Pruitt, and you will see all the wonderful things that Princess Elizabeth is doing and her family because of her bloodline, her royal bloodline, all the things they're doing to help liberate humanity. And I had read a book called Yamashita's Gold and Gold Warriors that talks about a lot of the gold that was supposed to be used to help pay off the debts all over the world and to implement trust and fund certain humanitarian efforts to help people all across the globe. So it's not just Yamashita's gold. I have the book called Gold Warriors. You can learn about that gold that was stolen, but it has been recovered, and that gold is going to help many nations. But you have the Rodriguez Trust, the Saint Germain Trust, and several other trusts that many bloodline families have created. It's kind of like the Sovereign Wealth Fund. These trusts are funds full of rare earth minerals, gold, silver, other precious metals, and lots of different assets that these bloodline families have been saving because they knew a time would come that humanity would be liberated. And this is the time in which we're living right now. So President Trump listed many countries. He said all countries have called him and conceded and said they want to negotiate tariffs. But he has listed many countries, and then mainstream media took it upon themselves to list at least 50 in a particular article that I'll show you. And they'll say that more than 50 countries have reached out for economic negotiations in the wake of President Trump's sweeping Liberation Day tariffs. Only a few, according to mainstream media, have publicly confirmed that talks of negotiations, but we know that President Trump said all nations have conceded. The article that I'm going to show you talks about 50 nations such as Britain, China, Cambodia, Canada, Australia, Argentina, South Korea, Israel, Vietnam, Mexico, and many others. But I'll present that to you just so you can see the heading of that article. Maybe we'll read a few paragraphs, and I'll also put it in the description section of the video here on Rumble and YouTube. The article was just published 7 hours ago. It says, here is every country working on trade deals with the United States. President Donald Trump administration says more than 50 countries have reached out to him for economic negotiations in the wake of his sweeping Liberation Day tariffs, but the article says only a few have publicly confirmed this. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington, D.C. on today to meet with President Trump. He's hashing out an economic deal right now, and that's on the top of his priority list. UK Prime Minister and many other nations. So I'll leave that in the description section for you. But for the interest of time, or in the interest of time, we won't go over all of those countries. So let me see if I can put that here in the chat for you, family. This is a good thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, Eric wants us to know that med beds are already in every major city globally, and we will be able to access them during the RV. Grand Even Black Coral. So again, the tariffs or the taxes being implemented on the countries with whom we've been doing business is a good thing. Unfortunately, under the Biden administration, other Obama's administration, and other administrations, these people just allowed countries to import all of their goods here into America. They didn't put any taxes on them, or if they did, it was a very little tax. And these countries were actually ripping us off. But meanwhile, we imported anything into their nation, we had to pay out of the wazoo. While these people in power were also taxing the people through the Internal Revenue Services. Well, President Trump has said, not on my watch. Again, all of this will lead to the reinstatement of these countries' currencies, because again, putting tariffs or taxes on these other countries will force them to revalue their currencies. They have to. How else are they going to pay the taxes? How else are they going to be on a level playing field with America? How else are they going to be able to negotiate? They have to revalue their currencies, as well as some of the things that they're doing, like Iraq implementing the new transportation system, creating a high demand for the Iraqi dinar, which will again create a low supply for the dinar. Vietnam, you saw the article I showed you the other day that said just by Vietnam removing taxes from imported American goods, that's going to create a high demand for the Vietnamese dong, which would then decrease the supply, which will lead to a revaluation of their currency. So I'll go to that video that I did the other day so you can read those articles for yourself. If you have the time, it's a good idea to look under the description section of my videos, because typically I list all of the articles that I pull up to support my claims, and any other articles that affirm the things that I'm saying, as well as videos, so that you can listen to them and read them at your own time. Let's see, what is it? I'm trying to see if I can find. Yes, so there is a video. If you go to the Dr. Kia Pruitt show, you'll find it on Rumble, but also in the live section of my videos on my YouTube channel. My handle there is at Dr. Kia Pruitt Official. This is what it looks like. Scroll down in the, you said video, shorts, lives, posts, and store. Scroll to the live section. Here's the live we're doing right now. And go down to breaking Iraq and Vietnamese news. In that video, I've shown you the articles that says that Iraq becoming the transportation hub now increases the demand for the Iraqi dinar, and Vietnam removing the tariffs from imported American goods increases the demand for the Vietnamese dong. So if you look at that video, you want to click on the video and you can go to the description section. Here are all the articles. Vietnam cuts taxes on imported American goods. If you want to see the article, I can bring it up. Vietnam closely watching the Forex or the exchange. Iraq becoming a transportation hub of the Middle East and the world. All this talks about how this causes a high demand for their currencies, therefore increasing the rate or the value of those countries' currencies. Absolutely. What a wonderful time to be alive, family. So somebody said that they sent a Cash App. I missed it, and you wanted to know if I got it. I saw you, but then I was kind of on a roll. I don't see. Let me see who it was. 1 minute, family. Thank you so much for sending a Cash App blessing. I appreciate you all so much. You said you wanted to make sure I got it. Hold on. While you're still on, I want to acknowledge you. It was Han Lee, Sister Sophia Lee. Thank you so much for sending a financial monetary gift. I appreciate you. I also want to thank Dennis Perkins for your Cash App gift. Who else? Patricia Henley, thank you so much for sending me a gift or financial contribution for my work that I do. Justina Sanders, thank you so much. Eileen Martin, I appreciate you. Eileen says, thank you. Darlene Taylor says, this is for the dinar encouragement. Thank you so much, Sister Darlene. Sister Norma Salazar says, thank you, Dr. Kia. I'm sending you love. I appreciate you. Sister Sheila Wallace says, thank you. Donald Richardson says, here's a payment. And Deborah Allen says, let's go, Queen. I appreciate you all so much for sending me a Cash App. And for those of you who are asking, it's $ Mama Kia 13. That's $ MAMAKIA 13. So what else is in the news, family, is that the gold prices, as somebody has iterated earlier in the podcast, have gone down. Gold and silver prices had gone down because gold had reached about $3,200 per ounce and maybe even more than that. Gold continued to climb right before President Trump's deadline of the tariffs, but then and right immediately after, gold continued to climb, but now we see a steady decrease in the price of gold, and we see it now at $2,986.56, which is down by about $50 in the last 24 hours. And silver, though, which had gone all the way up to $35, but it started to go down, and now it's at $30 per ounce. It was just at $29 or $28 2 days ago. So silver is up just by 48 cents. If you want to know why gold and silver are going down, it's because investments are always influenced by geopolitics. Investments such as digital assets, stocks and bonds, and gold and silver are always influenced by elections. They're influenced by negotiations. They're influenced by tariffs. They're influenced by war, all these type of things. So they'll fluctuate. People will get in and out of the precious metals market and in and out of the digital asset market based on their emotions. But when you learn how to be emotionally intelligent or how to keep your emotions in check, you learn when to hold them, okay? And when to fold them, when to walk away, know when to run, you know that song. But what most economists are saying, most Austrian economists are saying right now, most people in the know that understand and understand what's going on, is hold on for dear life. HODL, hold on to your assets, family. And when you see a fluctuation in assets like digital assets, XLM, XRP, whatever the digital assets in which you are invested, or you see a fluctuation of gold and silver like what we're witnessing right now, then it's a buying opportunity. An economic principle is to buy low and sell high. Another economic principle is to hodl for dear life, or hold on for dear life. Hodl, hold on to your assets, because some people will sell when they become nervous, when they see things drop in value, but it may not be a good idea for you to sell because these assets will continue to increase in value. Remember, I said that in order to pay off all the debts that are on the books here in America, at least you have to revalue gold between $10,000 per ounce and $100,000 per ounce per many economists. and many economists have been saying, like Bill Holter, Jim Rickards, and many other economists and investors have been saying this for years. You have to revalue gold. Gold will revalue in order to pay off the books, and it will be reinstated or go right back up to its normal or lawful value, because silver and gold have been historically suppressed by people that were in power. But these people do not have the same power that they once had to continue to repress the prices, okay? Or to show you or reflect the true value of gold and silver. So if I were you, what I at least would tell my family members is to buy while the value or while the prices are low or while they're dropping, and then hold on for dear life. Okay. So that's what's going on in the gold and silver space. People are getting a little uncomfortable because of the tariffs, and they are being told by financial advisors that these countries, and by mainstream media, that these countries are going to increase tariffs on American goods and services, but they don't necessarily know where to look like we know where to look. And they don't trust President Donald Trump. They don't, or they just don't follow him. But what in fact is happening when these countries know that President Trump isn't playing with them, and that he's going to put tariffs, taxes, or duties on their goods coming to our country, is that these countries are relenting and they're removing taxes on American imported goods. So some people are just being misinformed, so they're getting nervous, they're panicking, and they may be selling their gold or silver. But what investors do, and bankers and countries, and who else, company holders and people that just know what's going on, what they do when they see announcement like this, like tariffs going to be put on companies, is they know that the dollar is going to be affected. So they take their savings and they hide it in silver and gold, so that the savings that they have that's being devalued with all these nations through the BRICS coalition dropping the dollar, and with all the money printing that has been going on during the CV and the pandemic, and all, when everything was shut down, all the money printing that's been going on, they know the dollar is devaluing. Okay. So what they know is the economic principle that says that as the dollar devalues, gold and silver increase in value. So people in the know that understand and overstand economic principles are holding their dollars, their fiat, in precious metals. They know that precious metals maintain their value or increase in value, whereas the dollar will continue to depreciate. We're talking about the USD that's attached, or the fiat system that's attached to the United States Federal Reserve central banking system. But in anticipation of all this happening, and the stock market collapse happening, and real estate market and automobile industry collapsing, because everything attached to the dollar will collapse when the dollar completely collapses, bankers started hoarding gold. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, you had banks hoarding gold and record numbers. You had China amassing gold or acquiring gold in record numbers. You had many countries, India, amassing gold or accumulating gold in record numbers. So over the last 2 or 3 years, you saw countries, banks, and investors hoard gold in record numbers in anticipation of the collapse of the United States dollar and the Federal Reserve central banking system. They could see it happening when the pandemic happened with all the money printing. They knew that the Treasury, not the Treasury Department, but the Federal Reserve was printing money out the wazoo, and that this money was backed by nothing. So they knew that the dollar had lost at least 90% of its purchasing power by the time of the pandemic. So they knew it would continue to lose its purchasing power. This is people in the know. Not even financial advisors knew this, but I'm talking about wealthy people who are in the know, who study Austrian economics and not Keynesian economics. I studied economics in grad school. So those people that watch all the money printing knew that the dollar would lose its value, and therefore they understood that they needed, or overstood they need to put their money in a safe asset. Gold and silver are a safe haven. They retain the value of your savings, and it's a safe haven in that it is a hedge against inflation. And precious metals always maintain their value or increase in value. This is why, again, you saw banks hoarding gold in record numbers as of 2022 and 2023 and 2024, and countries doing the same thing. You saw was President Trump start talking about these tariffs on a campaign trail, investors doing the same thing. It's like, he's going to come after us. Okay. So we're going to have to put our money in something that is stable, and that's gold and silver. But it's the people that don't know what's actually going on. They don't understand or understand economics that's kind of fledgling. They're getting a little worried, getting upset, and they're like, maybe I should trade my gold and silver. Maybe the dollar's going to increase in value, or maybe I don't know what to do. So maybe I should just pull out. And then you have some people selling their gold and silver because they got to pay bills, okay? But always remember that when you see assets depreciate, that is a time for you to actually get in on a wealth transfer, to get in on becoming wealthy or storing up some type of asset for your posterity. And your posterity is your future generation. Now, speaking of gold and silver, I found something out that was amazing, that brought joy to my soul, that had occurred on Thursday. I'm looking up something else. Kentucky, in the state of Kentucky, you guys know I raised my children in the state of Kentucky, in Louisville, Kentucky. And I lived there for over 20 years. Okay. So I always or often keep up on Kentucky news. Well, recently on Thursday, you had 3 taxpayers and a major online gold or precious metals dealer, Money Metals, I believe it was, to sue the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear. Why did they sue the governor? For putting taxes on precious metals. Because as you all know, and I've reported this many times, Kentucky became the 45th state to repeal state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals, thus acknowledging gold and silver as money. By removing or repealing state sales taxes from precious metals, you acknowledge that gold and silver is not or are not commodities or collectibles, but that they are in fact money. Kentucky became the 45th state. New Jersey became the 46th state. And now, according to the Sound Money Defense League, more than 46 states have repealed the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals. But on Thursday, family, 3 taxpayers, and the article states who they are, sued the governor of Kentucky, Governor Andy Beshear, because there weren't supposed to be any taxes on precious metals, and they were forced, of course, when they went to buy precious metals, to pay the taxes, because taxes have still been assessed to precious metals in the state of Kentucky. But these people took it upon themselves to sue the governor. And this is what I keep telling people when people tell me, oh, nothing's moving, nobody's doing anything, I'm still paying taxes on precious metals, or President Trump isn't moving fast enough, or I thought you said the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, which means that all of these government agencies have to be dismantled. I said that. And yes, that did happen this summer, that the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine, also known as Chevron deference. And they declared these government agencies, FBI, CIA, IRS, all of them were unconstitutional and treasonous. And the Supreme Court said that they had to be dismantled because they were treasonous, which is why President Trump put Elon Musk over DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency, to shrink the government, to downsize the government, because they are not part of our republic. Well, people keep saying, oh, you're not telling the truth, prove it, because we still have the IRS, we still have the FBI, we still have the CIA, we're still paying taxes, to which I continue to respond that at the state level, you have power. And I continue to say, use your power. You are sovereign. Paying taxes is a voluntary thing. And if your leaders aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you need to operate at the state level, because according to the 10th Amendment for our Constitution of our republic, state and local communities have more power than the federal government. And it goes on to say that the federal government is fake and faux and only has the power that the people continue to give it. When you agree to the federal government, we are agreeing to be slaves. And that's called tacit agreement. You might not say it out your mouth, I'm a slave. You might not say it out your mouth that I agree to paying taxes. I agree to being governed by these entities, governed, managed, controlled, ruled, government, govern the mind, manage the mind, govern, manage, control the mind, government, department, compartmentalize, depart, divide, the menche, agreement, agree to having my mind enslaved. When you and I agree to be governed by the government or manage, have our mind controlled by the government, whether we say it out of our mouths or not, by complying and doing whatever we say, they tell us, then we agree to be a slave. That's why Kanye West said many years ago, slavery is a choice. People got mad. We agreed through tacit agreement by going along. Okay. So when people tell me that they don't have power, it's not fair, the government didn't do what I said they do, and we're always going to have to pay these taxes, and we're always going to have to comply, and why am I still paying taxes on my precious metals? When I kept reading those comments, I said, you know what? It makes me not even want to read the comments. I love reading the comments and responding to people, especially the positive people. It's just that the negative ones, it would just irritate me. Like, why continue to say you have no power? People in the state of Kentucky said, we're going to do something about paying taxes on the precious metals when it was already ruled through legislation to repeal taxes and remove taxes from the sales of precious metals. So 3 Kentucky citizens or taxpayers and a precious metals retailer sued Governor Andy Beshear for what? Illegal sales tax seizures. On Thursday, March 27th, 3 Kentucky taxpayers and one of the America's largest precious metals dealers filed a class action lawsuit against Governor Andy Beshear, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and the Department of Revenue for their illegal sales tax collections in connection with retail purchases of physical gold and silver. I'm going to leave that in the description section for you to read at your leisure, because people keep saying they don't have power, they can't do anything, Trump isn't doing anything enough, the state legislators won't do things, and I keep asking, what are we doing? Why is it okay for us to sit on our laurels and expect somebody to do something for us when we can use our power to either work at the state level, pressure our state representatives, or sue people who are in power? Money Metals Exchange, Jill Stoff Houston, Stacey Earle, and Karen Strayer filed the state court complaint in the Boone Circuit County Circuit Court on behalf of themselves and all similarly situated Kentucky taxpayers and precious metals dealers across the United States. They sued on behalf of themselves. These 3 taxpayers, Jill, Stacey, and Karen, Karen, right? You know, y'all know about Karen, so they gonna tell on you, honey. And they sued on behalf of the precious metals company, one of the largest, Money Metals Exchange, and on behalf of all people or similarly situated Kentucky taxpayers all across the United States. Anybody that's dealing with this, they sued on behalf of we the people. The class action suit comes immediately on the heels of overwhelming votes by both the Kentucky House of Representatives and Senate to override Governor Beshear's veto this week on House Bill 2, a measure which expanded the state's new sales tax exemption from precious metals purchases. Legislatures have decided to remove the state sales tax from precious metals so that they can align themselves with the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, that says the only thing that can be used to pay off debt are silver and gold, and to align themselves with the Coinage Act of 1792 on April the 2nd that attached silver and gold to money or to the dollar, and to align with the Constitution that says that the dollar is defined as a fixed weight in silver. State lawmakers are passing legislation. Legislation is connected to the United States Incorporated. Law is in connection to the Republic. Why are they passing legislation when the Republic already says that the dollar is defined as a fixed weight in silver, and the only thing that can be used to pay off debts are silver and gold? It's because these state people in power, or lawmakers or legislatures that are attached to the United States Incorporated, they're using the tools of the deep state against them. They're passing legalities, creating statutes, codes, and policies and bills, which is a tool of the deep state. They're passing legislation, using it their own tool of the deep state against the central banking system, the Federal Reserve Central Banking System of the United States Incorporated. They're doing the same thing that President Donald Trump is doing. He's using the tool of the deep state, executive orders, to dismantle the system that was in power, to dismantle the government, and to confiscate the assets of these people through Executive Order 138/18 that says that any entity that's dealing with crimes against humanity will have their asset frozen, and they will go through military tribunals. Seeing if I can find the articles that says Kentucky became the 45th state. I did announce it when it happened. If y'all see it, can you find it for me and put it? I put a link in the chat. Here it is right here. April the 12th, 2024. And I announced it as soon as it happened. After an illegal veto, Kentucky becomes the 45th state to end sales taxes on gold and silver. This was announced April the 12th, 2024. The announcement came out of Frankfort, Kentucky, which is the capital, and a high-stakes showdown with Governor Andy Beshear, over a gold and silver sales tax exemption. The Kentucky legislature deemed his attempted line item veto as an illegal act and directed the Secretary of State to enroll the exemption into law. This action makes the Bluegrass State the 45th state in the nation to enact this sound money policy, and they were the second one this year. That was last year of 2024. Kentucky became the 45th state to remove the state sales taxes from precious metals. So these taxpayers were wondering, why am I still paying taxes when I invest in or buy precious metals? And so they said, we're going to sue these three people, taxpayers, Governor Andy Beshear, on behalf of Money Metals, ourselves, Kentucky, and any other people in this position all across America, so that we can send a notification out to all other governors that we're not playing. Okay. We're gonna show by example that the people have more power than these governors. Remember at the governor conference on February 8th, 2020, you had the the former CIA director and the Secretary of State, then Mike Pompeo, speaking to the governors at the governor conference on February 8th, 2020, right before the pandemic was announced as a pandemic, well, the CV was announced as a pandemic. Right before that happened in March, he met at the governor's conference, and I spoke on it when he did this conference, and he told all the governors, I have a report card. You can find it on YouTube. Secretary of State Pompeo speaks at the governor's conference, February 8th, 2020. He said, I have a report card on all of you governors. And the report card shows how complicit you've been with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, in allowing people to come here from the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and interfere with politics, interfere in the health sector, interfere in research, and interfere in every segment of our society. And this report card actually comes from the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party, and it grades you all from A to F on how complicit you've been in allowing our country to be infiltrated by communists. He said, I'm going to call upon you to do the right thing. I'm a former investigator. I used to work for the CIA. As a matter of fact, Pompeo said I was the CIA director. I worked with the FBI. I know who you are, and I'm telling you and I'm warning you to do the right thing. Stop working with the CCP. You've allowed them to come into our institutions of higher education. You've allowed the CCP, the Communist Party, to come into the government and to take positions of power. You've allowed them to take positions of power in the banking industry, education, health, science, politics, and every segment of our society. But I'm telling you to stop right now while you're ahead of yourself, because if you don't, you're going to be in very big trouble. Well, that was February the 8th, 2020. These governors did not listen. And as a matter of fact, they continue to align themselves with the CCP or the Communist Chinese Party. And they allow the CV or the virus to continue to spread through our nation. And they allow for a shutdown of our nation, which severely impacted the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people worldwide. And it harmed our economy. Well, right after that, we know that President Trump and the Grand Army of the Republic was doing their job of arresting people behind the scenes. And then you had 400 million people defect from the Chinese Party of China, the Communist Chinese Party. Yes, 400 million people defected. And they had a big celebration called Tai Dong in New York to commemorate how 400 million people actually took their power back by saying we no longer want to comply with the Chinese Communist Party of China. Also, right on the heels of that, you have the largest real estate company that was owned by the CCP and China called Evergrande to file bankruptcy here in America a couple years ago. The largest real estate agency in China, owned by China, filed bankruptcy in America because they owned a lot of farmland, they owned a lot of homes, a lot of commercial property. Not only did they file for bankruptcy, but they were forced to liquidate their assets. And this is contributing to the downturn of the housing market, because you have the CCP and Evergrande filing for bankruptcy. You have Zillow, you have BlackRock, State Street, and all these big corporations, some of which were involved with China or in cahoots with China and the Ukrainian mafia. But you have these big conglomerate of agencies to dump the houses back onto the market, because where they had bought up all the farmland, all the real estate, all these commercial buildings, and raised the rents right after the pandemic, because they knew people needed a place to stay once they foreclosed on all these houses. They raised the rents, and people could no longer afford to do business in these commercial properties, or they could no longer afford to rent out these houses or these apartments. And now all of these companies have dumped those properties back onto the market because there's nobody in them. People are now on the street. That's why the homelessness rate is so high here in America and all across the world. So these big companies have now put the houses and commercial properties back onto the market, which means these are now depreciated assets. How can you become wealthy during a recession and a depression like what we're living in right now? Buy depreciated assets if you have the money. Buy real estate, buy commercial property, or you can continue to wait till the prices can go down, because they'll keep going down. Buy digital assets, buy foreign currencies. You don't have to pay $100 for the Zimbabwean Zim. You can buy a lower denomination and buy a note for $10. You can buy a Vietnamese dong note, $100,000 Vietnamese dong note. You don't have to get the largest denomination. You get a $10,000 or $100,000 note for less than $10. So family, put in the chat all the currencies that people should think about buying. We're not financial advisors. I am a financial advisor. I advise my family. I advise anybody who's going to ask me. I'm not certified, but I'm a self-proclaimed financial advisor. Okay. And I've helped through the power of God to change the mind and shift the paradigm of many people as we prepare to create wealth for our posterity. We're changing the trajectory of our future and of our bloodline. Please put in the chat, family, which type of digital assets the family should look into, the assets that have been depreciated in value, that will go up in value because President Trump said he will make America the digital capital of the world. Remember that? Which digital assets should our family consider? If they were your family members, what would you tell them to do? What type of currencies would you advise them to get into, whether it be the Zimbabwean Zim, the Vietnamese Dong, the Iraqi dinar, the Afghanistan Afghani, the Indonesian rupiah, the Indian rupee. Which currencies should they consider, family? What would you advise? Maybe if you don't not a financial advisor, what would you advise them if they asked you if they were your family members? Or what would you do if you had a few coins? What type of gold would you invest in? Where could they go for these foreign currencies or for these digital assets? You can find all this on my channel on the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show on Rumble and or YouTube. But just in the interest of time, family, I don't have all the time to go over this. What should they be looking at? When should they consider the real estate market? Because we know everything attached to the dollar will depreciate as the dollar loses its value. Everything that's attached to the dollar will depreciate. That's why the stock market is going down. Okay. Which currencies, which digital assets, should they get houses? We're just talking. We're just having a conversation, just for education and entertainment purposes. Where can they get these currencies? Let's help the soul family, because we are going to change the trajectory, of our entire family and our entire bloodline by creating wealth. This is how people became wealthy during the Depression, family. They bought depreciated assets. So if you are inclined, help the family out. Let them know what they should do if they want to buy depreciated assets, if they want to become wealthy. So I mentioned Zimbabwe a minute ago. And let me tell you why I mentioned Zimbabwe as a Zimbabwean Zim. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video. And if you're interested in investing in my work, you can send a monetary blessing to Mama Kia, $MAMAKIA. So look at this. If you have not, thank you so much for the Cash App blessing. If you have not followed Ariel, whose handle is Prolotario1 on Twitter, I don't know why you haven't. You need to, because he, along with Majeed, name is spelled Majeed on Twitter, and some other people share currency news. And what Ariel said the other day was hold on. Did he say that? He said it yesterday. Hold your Zimbabwe currency. Just in from Watcher Guru, Zimbabwe to remove tariffs on all U.S. imports to build a positive relationship with President Trump. Why would Ariel say hold on to your Zimbabwean currency? Because like I said, family, they want to create a level playing field. If President Trump puts tariffs on these countries, they're going to remove tariffs on all United States imports so that we can all be equal. You remove tariffs from our country, we'll remove some of the tariffs on your country, but we're still going to tax you if you want to do business with us. Well, you want to negotiate, you're going to have to raise the value of your currency. Also, all nations have made these agreements. Remember, I said Project Sandman was an agreement between 209 nations to do what? When triggered, stop trading with the dollar and trade with their own local currencies. How can you trade with your own local currency if your currency has been devalued? How can you pay taxes on the goods that you import to other nations if your currency is devalued? You can't. You have to revalue your currency or reinstate your currency back to its lawful value. President Trump is making sure that happens, family. Peace and kindness to you too. Kula says we don't want to hold on to our currencies. We want to RV now. So what we desire to happen is a reinstatement, because it is an RV or revalue, but they're reinstating their currencies back to the value that it had before war and before sanctions. And when that happens, then you'll see these countries' currencies trade on the Forex. And some of these countries will actually make a hard disclosure. They'll announce it. And some of it will be a soft disclosure. The disclosure will be you see it trading on the Forex. And then you go to the bank once the country's currencies have been reinstated back to their lawful prices or rates. And those of you who bought these currencies for pennies or just a few dollars, now when you have a higher rate assessed to it, and it's been reinstated back to its normal rate. So some of these countries' currencies are like 16 cent, right, per USD to the USD, 16 cent to one USD or a couple cents. When they're revalued to $3.15 or higher, because you know it's probably not just going to be revalued back to its pre-war rate, but you have to take into account for inflation. You have to take into account the gold standard. And we know that all these countries have returned to gold because we've been talking about Project Sandman for a long time, for many years. But we also have the King's World article that we've been sharing with you all since 2023 when the article came out. And this article says the world is hurtling back toward gold as money. The whole world is rushing back to gold as money. And they did this on the heels of Vladimir Putin exposing Ukraine through the so-called Ukrainian war. And then again, what happened was Biden put sanctions on him. And then Vladimir Putin clapped back by dropping the United States dollar and trading with his own currency. And then Vladimir Putin led Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, also known as the BRICS coalition, to follow suit and stop trading with the dollar and use their own local currencies for trade. They first started using the Russian ruble, and that's why the Russian ruble, at the same year of the Ukrainian war, the Russian ruble was the strongest performing currency in the world. The whole world is rushing back towards gold and silver, or gold as money. And once Vladimir Putin led Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa to stop trading with the dollar and use their own local currency, he met with all nations at the BRICS conference, and he addressed them all, and specifically the African nations, and said, stop trading with the dollar and use their own local currencies. Right after that, Mali, Burkina Faso, Senegal, Chad, and Niger stopped trading with other currencies, and they started using their own local currencies. They kicked out the French, and they created their own military, and they had Russia to back them. And that led to the French having a serious problem financially. Their economy tanked. And that's why they had a no confident vote and got rid of the entire cabinet, especially the Treasury Department, the entire cabinet in France, because they said, we don't have any confidence in you guys because y'all allowed these African nations to kick us out of their nations. No longer are we colonizing them. No longer is our military there. No longer can we suck on their breasts. No longer can we exploit the people and mine their resources. And now the French are suffering and our economy is suffering. And so they're pressuring Macron, the president, to step down. Well, it's not just happening in France, it's happening all over the world. You have the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, to follow Vladimir Putin's suit. And as of 2022, to stop trading with the dollar and to use the Russian ruble. And then they start using their own local currencies. And then the BRICS nations, thank you for the Cash App blessing, tapped on the shoulders of Saudi Arabia and asked them to join. And BRICS became known then as Saudi BRICS in 2022. When Saudi Arabia joined BRICS, that was monumental because, again, what made the dollar, the USD, the world reserve currency? What gave the United States Incorporated financial and economic hegemony? What made them the financial and economic powerhouse was the agreement that the United States Incorporated had with Saudi Arabia to protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for the oil and force all nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia and use the dollar to do so. So when Saudi Arabia joined BRICS, my darlings, it was over for the deep state, the Federal Reserve, and the central banking system. The dollar collapsed, okay, immensely, unbeknownst to most people. They propped it up, of course, on paper, talking about the Federal Reserve. But once Saudi Arabia joined BRICS, other nations joined BRICS. And this was 2022 when Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals Company, and I announced this. 85% of the global population had joined BRICS. That's a lot. 85% of the population had joined BRICS in 2022, which means 85% of the world had stopped trading with the dollar a long time ago. What was left? The Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, those Asian nations, they also stopped trading with the dollar. So you have BRICS, you have Saudi Arabia, BRICS and Saudi Arabia, South BRICS, and all the 85% of the global population. Then you have the Asian nations, the Shanghai Corporation, that stopped trading with the dollar. So behind the scenes, it's been over since 2022, and really before that. But we can at least point to 2022 because we saw inflation raise. We saw Janet Yellen, who was the Fed chair, say, "Oh my God, we've reached a debt ceiling. We have to take extraordinary measures. We're going to have to take money from government workers in order to handle this problem." That was 2022 and 2023. So we knew that the dollar had been decimated. We saw it also through inflation and all this money printing, okay? But once BRICS made their announcement that they were coalescing against the West, what they were really saying is we are coalescing against the United States Incorporated, and we're forcing the Federal Reserve central banking system to bankrupt, to collapse, to become insolvent, because we're not trading with their dollar. We're trading with our own currencies backed by precious metals. I'm trying to see if I can find how the Russian ruble became the strongest performing currency in the world in 2022. I know it's there because I reported on this many times. I reported on it when it happened. Vladimir Putin was the catalyst. Remember, Project Sandman said when triggered, 209 nations would stop trading with the dollar. Putin was the trigger when he exposed all the things going on in the Ukraine with the sickness, the virus that was manufactured there, and with all the laundering of money, children, organs, and humans that was going on there. So Russian ruble is the strongest currency in the world this year. That article was published June 28th, 2022, because Vladimir Putin stopped trading with the dollar, started using his own currency, and tasked and assisted the BRICS Union with doing the same. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So family, as you can see, things are moving along. I'll see if I can find Project Sandman because some of this has been removed. I remember when I was talking about Project Sandman, I didn't have the name for it. I've been talking about this since 2017, that there was a secret agreement between 209 nations to stop trading with the dollar, but I didn't have a name for it. And so, it looked like I was just running my mouth, but I knew what I was talking about. It was, okay, people are doing YouTube videos on it, but the article that I once had looks like it's been scrubbed. That's interesting. So I had articles on it that that's not there anymore, but what you will find when you look up Project Sandman is people doing YouTube videos. Here, let me see if I can show you guys this. Project Sandman, YouTube, Reddit. There's a thread that discussed Project Sandman. I'll see if I can find it. Beware of Project Sandman conspiracy. They call it a conspiracy. Project Sandman, is there a coordinated plan to crash the system or the markets? More YouTube videos here. But I had an article about Project Sandman. It says the community is not found. Wow. Oh, look. Gold futures. They're showing somebody showing gold futures where the prices are lowering. So I used to be a part of the Reddit community, but they banned me from Reddit. They banned me from Reddit Gold, Reddit Silver, Reddit all kind for life because I would talk about gold and silver. They even would ban me from the silver channel. And you're supposed to be talking about silver on the silver channel on Reddit. But they banned me because I suppose they just didn't want people to know about gold and silver before the time. Now I've been again talking about gold and silver as it relates to Project Sandman since 2017, but I've been talking about gold and silver and a change occurring since 2014 because I noticed that the Chinese were there mining gold, the Chinese and Europeans were mining gold in Ghana, which is called the Gold Coast. Thank you for the Cash App blessing. I appreciate you. Ghana is the Gold Coast. I lived there in 2014 and I saw many different nations mining gold there. And then I came across a book called Africa is China's Newest Continent. While I was in Ghana, I came upon that book and I knew that that something was happening. I was like, why is China over here mining so much gold? That was in 2014. I'm seeing if I could find a book, but it was called Africa is China's Newest Continent and talked about how China was accumulating a lot of gold and how that would make their nation rich. And they were just outright telling you, yep, we're doing it. While some of the mainstream articles were saying there are secret buyers of gold. Gold has been hoarded and accumulated in record numbers by certain countries. Plus, there are secret buyers. And then economists later came out and said those secret buyers were probably Chinese investors. Oaks says the ruble came out backed by gold when Russia responded to United States sanctions. Absolutely. So we are moving back to the gold standard, whether people know that or not, but they should be able to see it. Hello from Kentucky, or hello to you from Florida, but I am originally from Ohio, but I raised my kids in Kentucky. So hello, Empress. It's good to see you. She says, I'm late from Kentucky, but we're glad you're here. In case you missed it, Empress, 3 taxpayers and Money's Metals, was it Money's Metals? Yes, a large precious metals company sued Governor Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, because there are still taxes on precious metals, but state legislators had already passed legislation to remove state sales taxes from precious metals so that people shouldn't be paying taxes on metals. And that lawsuit is actually a class action lawsuit to send a message to Governor Andy Beshear in Kentucky and other governors, as well as send a message to people all across the globe to say that you are not going to pressure us to pay taxes on God's money, because money, gold and silver are money. You're not supposed to tax money. That's unlawful and it's unconstitutional. So these governors can go to prison for treason. Love Being Nubians in the house. She is our moderator. Welcome, Love Being Nubian. She says, Artavius, look under money market. Yes. Kula says, yes, 85% joined BRICS. So why have they not RV? Why is there not Nassar Jassar? So tired of them treating us like kids. Now we got these idiots protest against Trump. This is going to bite Trump in the behind. It won't bite Trump in the behind because, my darling, Trump knows what he's doing. The reason why there hasn't been a reinstatement of countries' currencies officially, because it has happened behind the scenes. It's just not official yet. The reason why we have not had an official reinstatement of countries' currencies, and why we haven't gone to the banks right now, if you own foreign currencies, is because you have to totally get rid of the people that are nefarious or bad that were in power. Trump is doing a phenomenal job of arresting people. He's doing a phenomenal job of forcing the hand of these countries to negotiate with us. These negotiations will force them to revalue their currencies. It will force them to reinstate their currencies back to its normal value because they can't even pay the tariffs if their value of the currency is not where it needs to be. They can't pay their workers. They won't operate at a level playing field, because another part of Project Sandman that says when triggered, all these countries would stop trading with the dollar and use their own country's currencies backed by precious metals, is that all countries' currencies will be 1-to-1 with each other. The same rate for the Iraqi dinar will be the same rate, will be 1-to-1, equal value to the United States Treasury note, equal value to the Afghanistan Afghan. At some point, they all will be 1-to-1, and everybody will be on a level playing field. You cannot have that to happen until everything is in place. It has taken thousands of years for us to be enslaved, to the extent that every human being just about was enslaved to the deep state. We were subject to MK Ultra mind control through their television and music programming, and through politics, through the Department of Education or the Department of Miseducation. And we were enslaved by paying taxes, interest, all these things, duties, tariffs, all these things that they were doing to us enslaved us. And when they enslaved us, they caused us to be under stress and under assault, which then would cause us to emit a psychic energy called loosh, which these beings that are in power, not being human, would eat. Like we eat plants, and some of you eat animals. They eat and they absorb loosh for energy. That is their food, the psychic negative energy that comes from us when we are stressed out from paying these high taxes, from being worn out, from being enslaved. Well, you have to completely demolish the deep state. The Federal Reserve Central Banking System, the United States Incorporated, the Roman Empire, everything attached to the United States dollar. Because if you have a reinstatement of these countries' currencies back to its pre-war and pre-sanctioned values, and then people start going to the bank and become rich, the people in power who have not all been dealt with yet will just steal the money and re-empower themselves. This is why it has taken so long. It has taken thousands of years for us to be enslaved. So President Trump is actually doing a phenomenal job. He and the Grand Army of the Republic and Earth Alliance and those beings that are not even human, that are benevolent, that are helping us, they're doing a phenomenal job of systematically destroying the deep state, confiscating their money through executive orders. Remember, they're using the tools of the deep state against them. Then you have people like John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., the real son of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Sr., coming out through his books talking about the deep state, MK Ultra mind control. He also filed a lawsuit, a civil suit, in the death of his mom, Jacqueline Kennedy. He's telling truth on the Dr. Kia Pruitt show and on other shows. You have him coming out, tell his story. You have some so-called stars and entertainers coming out. It takes time to systematically destroy the system. That's why it's taken so long, because it's taken a lot of time to get here. It's going to take some time to dismantle the system. But the good news is that you even know that it's being dismantled. The good news is that it's happening, and that not only are we in the know about the deep state being destroyed, but we are helping to destroy it by reporting the news and waking up the masses. You still have people that's buying into the liberal agenda, people that's still taking shots, because maybe they thought it was really helping them, and people still dying. You have to wake up the people the best way possible. If you just come bursting through the door saying, hey, we're going to take over the deep state, we're going to go back to the gold and silver standard, we're going to make everybody rich overnight, most people won't be able to handle that. And we know that because when you have athletes and people that win the lottery, when they win overnight without being educated, without being prepared, they lose all their money. On top of all that, you have taxes that were still in place that would tax them. They will lose their money through taxes. You have people in power that was to systematically steal their money. You have them not being educated about wealth management. Well, now, thank you for the Cash App blessing. I appreciate you, Ray Wortman. Thank you so much for the gift. Now, with the systematic destruction of the deep state and the information being rolled out about the Democratic Party and how they took advantage of people and how they put into the minds of women to get rid of their own babies through abortions, and how they use Norman Norma McCormick, or whatever her name is. Her fake name is called Row, as in row your boat gently down the stream, talking about maritime admiralty law. When you had this Norma woman whose name, her moniker is Row, lying and said she was raped by 5 Black men and she needed an abortion and she needed to unalive her children, and you use her and Margaret Sanger to put abortion clinics and to the Black community classified as Black, as well as some other impoverished or what do you call it, indigent population, so that people can get rid of their babies, which was a part of the depopulation agenda. And you have the feminist agenda that would get women out of the home from raising their kids, so that the deep state through the Department of Education can mine, screw, or manipulate our children and prepare them to become slaves for the workforce. You have the Department of Education doing that. You have the feminist agenda doing that, finding out a way to get women into the workforce so they could tax that population as well as tax the men, because it wasn't about equality for women. It was all about getting women into the workforce to steal our children, put them through CPS and traffic them off, okay, and put them in a Department of Education or schools so that they can be mind manipulated, and to tax the women, the other half of the population. Well, this is something you can research. The feminist agenda, the abortion agenda, the KKK, which was also funded by the Liberal Party or the Democratic Party, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Until Freedom, all these so-called benevolent protesters that were paid by George Soros and the deep state or the Liberal Party, the Democratic Party. When you have all that bombarding us at once, as well as them allowing people to come into our country illegally and unlawfully, whether it be migrants or immigrants, unlawfully, so they can vote for the Democratic Party, they can vote for the liberals. That's not saying that the Republicans were all benevolent, because some of them weren't. Some of them were indeed racist. So you have that, but you also have the liberal agenda telling our children it's okay to be one gender when God made them and their parents made them another gender, telling them they can have sex change operations, putting this information in school, all this bombarding us, mind controlling us through the music, telling men in the Black community to kill each other. Have you noticed that all the rap videos and even the R&B videos show the men in prison talking about, will you ride for me? Will you die for me? Talking about, I'm going to shoot you up. I'm the top dog. I'm the this. Even people, as much as they love Tupac, he had a horrible message. He was a gangbanger. I don't care that he said, dear mama. He also had horrible messages about being a thug and thug life. And that got into the minds of many of our men classified as Black, had them acting like miscreants, or they chose to by through the music manipulation, and the women acting like ratchet whores, shaking their tatas and their booties from watching this in the video, and all the movies showing some women being wives by showing women classified as Black being the mistress or the bed wench or the side chick or the hoe or the whore or the thought, and the children running a roughshod in the street. And now you got children in impoverished communities, not just communities classified as Black, killing each other, using fentanyl. It's gotten so bad, it's reached middle-class neighborhoods and upper-class neighborhoods, because these countries were not protecting the border. They were allowing drugs to come through their borders, and the Liberal Party was not protecting American borders. You have all this stuff happening, and all the people buying into the liberal agenda, and all the people telling their kids, yes, it's okay to be one sex when you're not. And then they were now convincing, they use the so-called Black community by saying, oh, you're oppressed, and all these movies about slavery, you once a slave, 1,000 years a slave, 100 years a slave, you always be a slave, oh, massa made me a slave, oh, Kizzy and Kumba and Roots and all this. And then they lie in the books and say you were a slave when you really were the indigenous, autogenous, copper-colored races found by Christopher Columbus and the Europeans that came here, according to Webster's 1828 definition of American. And according to the Europeans that came here, their writings, the so-called Black people are the autogenous people that sprung from the soil here. But you have all this mind manipulation, telling them they're a slave, telling European people, if you have clear complexion, or you don't, and you're not heavily melanated, or you're classified as white, then you should feel guilty because that meant that you were a slave owner. Just really harming the people. You're talking about hundreds and thousands of years of mind manipulation, slavery, taxation, MK Ultra mind control. It takes time to dismantle that system. And they did all this. They used the Black community. Oh, you need to be equal because you was a slave. Glad my mother never allowed me to buy in that. My mother told me the other day, I never heard that we was a slave ever in all my life. That was something that came out in the 1990s, maybe early 2000s through Roots. Alex Haley, who was the producer of the movie Roots, that talked about his family coming from slavery and say we all people classified as Black, who are the autonomous people here for real, were classified as a slave. He was sued by a Caucasian man by the name of Harold Corlander, because Harold Corlander said he stole he stole my characters. He was sued for plagiarism. He stole my book. A Caucasian man, a white man classified as white. Roots, who was classified a Black man. Alex Haley, who wrote Roots, a man classified as Black, wrote a book called Roots, telling Black people we all came from slave ships. Okay. Harold Corlander sued him in court and won, said he plagiarized his characters from his book called The African, stole his characters and used that whole story, as well as mainstream media, Hollywood, to propagate a lie. Okay, you're talking about mind manipulation. They used, and they said, okay, you've always been a slave. And of course they did things by stealing our land, by hiring Native Americans who came from the Bering Strait from Asia. You know, they came over here. They were escaping a lot of things that the Europeans were escaping, the things we're escaping. These people that masquerade as human, that are actually archons, draconians, reptilians, insectilians, other entities that are not human, that siphon our blood and our energy. These people were escaping from that, from Asia. They came to America. They call themselves Native Americans. They live on the reservations. Trump said they're not American because they're not. They came from Asia, but some of them stole our identity and the resources and the money and land that the government promised us, the autonomous people. You got all this happening. But then, you know, they would tell people classified as Black, you'll always be a slave, you're unequal, you're lesser than, your brain is smaller than. They use the education system to propagate this information, tell everybody all across the world that we're nothing, we'll never be nothing, have us acting like fools, killing each other in the street, having sex like we ain't got no sense, partying, shaking our behinds in videos, being a baby mama but not a wife, being a thought and a whore and a side chick and a mistress. Okay, which if that's what you want to do, but while other nations are building wealth through marriage and through actually learning how to create and generate wealth for themselves, we're shaking our tatas. So they use us and say, you're unequal. Now you got to fight for the rights of the homosexuals. Now you got to fight for the rights of the transgender. Now you got to fight for the rights of the illegal immigrants and the illegal migrants. Now you got to fight for the rights of the people who love children, because that's what they really wanted. They wanted the children. They call it, I forgot what they call it, where they say you can love whoever you want to love, regardless of the age, because really they were after the children. So you got all this mind manipulation that's happened, and governments being in cahoots with all this foolishness with these entities that I named, insectilians, reptilians, dracons, archons, etc. They were in cahoots with them. You have all this that has happened for hundreds and thousands of years, and bankers. And then if you wanted to make it in the world or in society, you had to join a secret society, Skull and Bones, right? The Boule, if you classified as Black. The Divine Nine, Greek societies, Black Greek societies. Not saying everybody that's involved in them are nefarious. I'm saying in order to move up, typically you have to join them. The Freemasons, if you're an Illuminati, if you wanted to move up, you had to join these. And what were some of these people doing? Molesting children, raping children, stealing children, sacrificing their family members, unaliving their own blood and their own bloodline just to move up through the ranks. Thousands of years of this happening. And we're worried about money and why Donald Trump isn't moving fast enough. And why isn't Nasara Jasara here yet? And when is the RV coming? I understand that people are hurting, but as I said earlier in this podcast, take it upon yourself to do something and stop expecting Trump to save you, because he's only one man. And the Grand Army of the Republic, which we should be thanking, they're losing their lives. And many of them, I've spoken to them, who are not even getting paid under the Biden administration because America doesn't have money. The United States dollar has collapsed. We have gold, but the gold hadn't been brought forth yet. So you had many people in the Army, the Grand Army of the Republic, the military, Earth Alliance, losing their lives rescuing children from underground military bases. You have James Comer from the House Oversight Committee jeopardizing his life by bringing out what the Biden family has done, the Biden crime family has done. And you can check out all the stuff that he has uncovered by going to oversight.house.gov or over the House Oversight Committee. And when you go to that website, type in Biden, you'll see all the evidence of what the Biden crime family has done to children, agreements with other nations, and how he and other presidents have allowed people from other nations to infiltrate our government. Most of your mayors, a lot of them aren't even married to Americans. Some of them aren't even American. Mayors, governors, presidents, not even American, or they have dual citizenships. Why? Even the people in power, entertainment, many of them aren't even Americans. They're not. So you have all this evil and criminal activity going on. And then you have people that are living in abject poverty who feel like they have to participate in the underground economy and sell drugs and sell their bodies. Women going to strip clubs, selling their bodies, joining on OnlyFans, having sex with rich men just for money, flying over to Dubai to pay for to feed their children. I am not in agreement with it. I don't like it one bit. But I'm saying I know that people feel they have to do this in order to eat. Selling their own family members and sending them, shipping them across the water. People coming over here illegally and unlawfully, some of them just for a good opportunity or a better opportunity. Why is it taking so long? Because it's taking so long to get here. But we know things are happening. We're reporting on it. But if you wanted to move faster, let's get off our behinds and let's do something. Let's move at the state level. We can actually operate at the state level. We can pressure lawmakers. We can become a lawmaker. We can sue people in power. And before we say it won't work, we should at least make an attempt. You can command things because you're powerful. If you are a Christian, your Bible says you have all power. You have dominion. You have dominion because your God, the God of the Bible, gave you dominion. The Bible also says that ye are gods in the Old Testament and Psalms and in the New Testament. If you're a Christian, and if you're not a Christian, but you just understand and overstand energy, you know that everything comes from source. Everything is energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes. So if you're not a Christian and you're not a part of the Abrahamic faiths, you know that the creator or the source is an energy. And if you desire to become like that energy, you need to resonate on that frequency because everything is energy. The law of oneness, there are 24 and some people say 48 universal principles. These are the laws that govern the universe. The first one is that the law of oneness, everything is one and one with nature, one with God. We're all one with source. Everything is source. Everything is energy. We come from source. Source lives within us. And if we decide to die, we will go back to source. That means if you are a part of source and you come from source and you go back to source, that means you are source. That means you have dominion. That means you need to start commanding things to happen. I command Nasara to happen. I command Jasara to happen. I command wealth. I command joy. I command prosperity. Ever since I've been doing that, along with my good decisions that I make, my life's been great and amazing. Command it. Because as long as we say when it's going to happen, why it ain't going to happen, you need to hurry up, oh please, you are still coming from an obeisance posture where you're begging and you're saying you're lower than, you're lesser than, and you need somebody else to save you. If you're a Christian, your Bible says, save yourself from this untoward, wicked generation. Save yourself. Not look to Donald Trump to save you. Save yourself. Fact check me from this untoward generation. The New International Version says, save yourself from this wicked generation. You are the Savior for whom you've been searching. So command it to be so. And how can you make wise decisions? You don't have to wait on Nasara and Jasara. If you have family, if you have friends, if you have people that are like-minded, you can put your money together and you can actually buy things like seeds and grow your own food and feed your own family. You don't have to be rich. You can feed your own family by growing your own foods. You don't even have to have a lot of soil. You can do it in your house. You can do it on your balcony. You can do it on your own. If you have bottles, sell them. If you're used to getting your nails and hair done, sacrifice. If you smoke cigarettes, stop. At least stop for one day. Use that money. Buy you some seed. Buy you some water. Buy a filter to clean your water. Learn, find out where the wells are. There's always a ram in the bush. There's always a way out. But we're so used to begging, whining, complaining, and looking for somebody outside of ourselves that we have gotten complacent. You can grow your own food. You could go to the farmer's market, or you can learn where the farmers are and support them and learn how to barter. You don't need money to barter. You can exchange services. You give me some potatoes, I'll do your hair. You give me some bread, I'll service your car. You teach my child or help me to teach my child, I'll give you a silver coin. Learn how to barter. Find like-minded people, whether it be family, friends, or people in your community. Learn how to barter. Grow your own food or support local farmers. Clean your own water. Why do you need Nasara to do that? Help yourself, help your children, help your neighbor, help the people in the church. Join church organizations and help your community. Pull your money together instead of giving it all to the pastor. I mean, yeah, if you want to give a tenth, I get that. But instead of giving it all to the church, or if you decide to give it all to the church, say, all right, church, since we've given you money, let's work in the community. Why do we need President Trump? We're thankful in Nasara. Find out where the loans and grants are. Create a foundation and get somebody to fund your project. Why do you need, why do we want it, we desire it, but you don't need it. And maybe you do, but I'm saying some of us that get mad at President Trump are looking to him as if he can do it alone when there's some things that you can do yourself. And one of the reasons why it's taking so long is because complaining holds up blessings. Complaining puts something in the atmosphere to stop things from happening. You have to command it to happen, and you have to position yourself to receive the blessings. You have to have a certain mindset, do a paradigm shift. If your mind is in a mind of abundance, knowing there's more than enough, knowing that the earth is the Lord's or source and the fullness thereof, or if you believe in God, or if you don't believe in God or goddess, knowing that nature provides for her own. There's more than enough. Do a mind shift, abundance mentality, prosperous mentality, positive mentality. Stop looking for one person to save you and save yourself from this wicked generation. Align with your children's father, your children's mother, your husband, your wife, your church, your community, your mama, your daddy, your elders, and learn how to negotiate. Why do we have to wait for Trump? And I'm not just trying to bash you. I'm saying that I keep hearing this over and over. This is going to bite Trump in the butt. Trump is not doing stuff fast enough. I thought you said this was going to happen. How come I'm still paying taxes? I don't know why you're still paying taxes, because it's voluntary. Why don't you do what I said? Write the IRS and the Treasury, United States Treasury Department. Tell them that you are not going to pay, or you're not able to pay, whatever you want to tell them. Ask them to forgive the debt or put it off until everything's official. Like, there's always a way, family. Why can't family members pull their resources together and all live under one roof? The Mexicans do it. I know, because I live amongst a lot of immigrants. They do it. Some Africans. I can't live with my family. You can't shut your mouth or shut your ego down for a few months. and pull your resource together under one roof and pay one mortgage or one rent. You can't keep your legs closed, your vagina is throbbing that much, or your penis is that hard that you can't stop having sex. I can't bring my lover in the house if I move with my family. You that out of control with your body that you can't sacrifice, or you can't take care of your needs outside, but come inside and make it and agree with one another. Come together and agree. Let us reason with one another. You can't do that for a few months, a year or two, until you pay off the mortgage, till you get the rent down, to pay off the utilities so that you can have money to buy depreciated assets. You don't have $3 to buy a gold RM note. You can't buy gold RM notes, which are 0.999 pure gold, 24 karat gold pressed on a note, which most states have already said is legal tender, whereby you can buy local goods and services. We can't come up with a few $3 for a gold RM note. You can't come up with money for constitutional silver, which is coins minted before 1964, real 90% silver, or a few dollars to buy some what's that silver? Sterling silver. We can't put our money together to go buy a Zim bond note for $10, $5. You can't go on eBay and buy a lower denomination Iraqi dinar or Vietnamese dong for $8. Going out and partying is that important? I know people that spend $20, $30, $40, $50, $100 a weekend just at the club. They pay for it to get in the club, then they pay for the drinks, and if they're a man, they pay for other women, but then they complain that they can't pay rent. I'm confused. I know people that get their hair done every month or every 8 weeks, but then complain about what Donald Trump is not doing to liberate them. There is something we can do. Use your power. I showed you the article where people are suing Governor Beshear. If more people get that mindset that if you cross me and you work against we the people, we're going to cross you and we're going to make you pay us. So I'm saying all this to say, family, you are sovereign. Sov means rule, means over. Sov means over. Reign means rule, control. You have rule, reign, and control over your own life. You are not a slave. You may have been treated like a slave. You may have been victimized. You may have been a victim, but at some point, let's get the mentality of a victor. We have to do a paradigm shift. We're grateful for Donald Trump. We're grateful for the Grand Army of the Republic. We're grateful for the Earth Alliance. We're grateful for everybody that's working to liberate the planet. We're grateful for Dr. Kia Pruitt. We're grateful for Mark Z. We're grateful for all the people that are reporting the news, for all the independent journalists. We are extremely grateful for X22 Report. We're grateful for RestoreRepublic.co. We're grateful for everybody reporting the news. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own life. I am responsible for my own life. I'm not putting that in the hands of somebody else. I'm grateful for what they're doing, but I can grow my own food. I know how to barter. I have gifts, skills, and abilities that I can exchange. I've done it. I was a certified credit repair specialist, A1. I never charged anybody ever to repair their credit because I don't even like credit. I can't stand credit. I can't stand debt. It's all going to go away anyway because it's unlawful. Usury, interest, all that's unlawful. Credit, all that's unlawful. But I would repair people's credit, and I've helped them get off bankruptcies, judgments, all type of things, collections off of their credit report. I did it for years. Their scores went up high, and they bought houses. They bought cars, and I never charged them a penny. I said, if you desire to give me something, I'll take a gift. I've been given tickets to concerts. That's where I got to hear Legacy for the first time. And Legacy was a woman. She had long locks. And by the way, I went with my best friend, Joe, at the time. And she walked up to me while she was singing. And she said, you are a beautiful, amazing queen. You are just gorgeous. And she started ministering to me in the middle of her concert. But that's just how good God is. I've gotten that. I've gotten people to give me a dessert, or people to just say thank you, or people to give me some type of certificate that they wrote out, I'll clean your house for a day or something. Bartering, exchange something for something else. If we all learn to do that, we won't even need money, which, by the way, is why we're moving to a digital system. We'll be using money by way of digital assets, gold and silver, and the new currencies that each country will be using, backed by gold and silver. We have three modes of exchange, but everything eventually will be digitalized, and everybody's going to be extremely wealthy. Nasara is going to happen. Jasara is going to happen. People have already reporting their debts being wiped away. My girlfriend had like $500,000 wiped away. She just called me again for like the 10th time to tell me. Student loans are being wiped away, et cetera, et cetera. People are calling. It's happening, family, through NASARA, National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. And all your money that was accumulated through your birth certificate, bond being securitized and trading on the New York Stock Exchange, then being put into a trust. And these companies like mortgages, student loans, all these places you buy a car, whatever, they would access your trust and pay themselves. And if you took your father, the father or mother, the child to court for child support, they would steal money out of their trust. That's unlawful. You're not supposed to give anybody your social security number. All that's going to be done away with. But all that would come out of the trust, and then they would charge you with interest and say you owe me, but you didn't know they were paying themselves out of the trust. You are all trust fund babies. You all have millions, if not billions of dollars. That money's coming back to you. Kula says, I respect my queen. No disrespect. The banks are not lending. I've made several calls and went in person. They make excuses. Yeah, they do. They do make excuses. Absolutely. People can only, yes, take so much. And that's why you have to take it upon yourself to use your own power to do something. You know, when you say I can't, I'm not saying you say that. When you say I can't, you close off your mind. The energy becomes constricted. But when you ask yourself, how can I? How can I? How can I get in on the greatest wealth transfer? How can I buy depreciated assets? How can I liberate myself? How can I be free? How can I change my mindset? How can I govern my own mind or control my own mind? How can I become the captain of my own life? How can I save myself? Scripture says, save yourself from this wicked generation. How can I create opportunities for myself and my family and my bloodline? That's when you'll start seeing opportunities open or avail itself to you, because the moment you make up your mind, the universe conspires to assist you. And having said that, family, I appreciate you all being here and participating in the chat. Somebody says buy silver. I appreciate you helping each other by telling everybody which currencies to buy and where to get them from. I appreciate all the intel that you dropped, family, in the chat, and how you're sharing your contact information with each other. I appreciate all that you're doing to support the Soul family and all that you've done to support me. I also appreciate the fact that many of you have sent a cash app to my cash app, $ Mama Kia 13. Let's see if I see anybody else. $ Mama Kia 13, $ MAMAKIA 13. And for how you support my work by listening to the podcast and sharing the video. I also want to say thank you to Ray Wartman for sending a gift to me. I appreciate you. God bless you. Heaven smile on you. I want to encourage you, family, to keep your vibrations high. Stay positive. Try your best to block out anything that's negative. Look for positivity. Look for abundance. Look for prosperity. Look for good news. And if it's a little challenging, follow Dr. Kia Pruitt on the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show. But more importantly, look within. You have everything you need within yourselves. You have gifts, skills, and abilities, and this is a perfect time to use them, okay, to barter and or to make money. You're an artist. Why not sell some of your art? Or exchange it for another good service. You know how to do hair? You know how to make clothes? You know how to sing? You have an idea you can talk about on YouTube? Do it, because all these corporations are closing, banks are closing, United States dollar, the USD is collapsing, stock markets are collapsing. A lot is happening behind the scenes and even right in front of our eyes. A lot of stores are closing. The malls are closing. Got all these commercial properties open. But this is the perfect time, as a lot of restaurants are closing and chains are closing. It's the perfect time for you to start honing your skills, because now you will be the entrepreneur that will contribute to your family, your community, and your society. Because a thriving nation is built upon thriving communities, and thriving communities are built upon thriving families. That's why we have to get the family back intact. And a thriving family is based upon you being a positive, healthy, thriving individual. Having said that, my name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. Have a good Monday, family, and look for some wonderful, wonderful news as we head into the new year. Peace. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Good night. Buenas noches.